Good evening. This is the City of Southfield regular meeting agenda of the City Council, August 28th, 2023 in Council Chambers. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Council President Mandelbaum.
Present.
President Pro Tem Taylor.
Here.
Councilmember Banks.
Present.
Councilmember Brightwell.
Here.
Councilmember Cruz.
Present.
Councilmember Frazier.
Here.
Councilmember Hoke.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Can you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up on our agenda is communications. The Southfield City Council has established the following rules of procedure for all speakers. No speaker may make personal or impertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, or city council member or other elected official that is unrelated to the manner in which the officer, employee, or city council member or other elected official performs his or her duties. No person shall use abusive or threatening language towards any individual when addressing the city council. Any person who violates this section shall be directed by the presiding officer to be orderly and silent. If a person addressing the council refuses to become silent when so directed, such person may be deemed by the presiding officer to have committed a breach of the peace by disrupting and impeding the orderly conduct of the public meeting of the city council and may be ordered by the presiding officer to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave as directed, the presiding officer may direct any law enforcement officer who is present to escort the violator from the meeting. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Our first speaker is Stacy Jackson.
Good evening, Stacy Jackson, Southfield resident. I am here today as a concerned citizen in regards to the upcoming November election. My understanding is that there is something on there that alludes to the residents having to appoint as opposed to vote for a city clerk and a city treasurer. As a middle-aged woman with a mother who is living independent, nearly 90 years old, she was in her mid-30s in the 1965 Voting Act, right? My father, if he was still alive, he'd be closer to his mid-90s. I know the stories of what they endured and others their age for the right to vote. Lynchings, murders, the voter intimidation that literally threatened their lives. Those efforts in the 60s was not just made to have the right to vote for a presidential election. It was the right to vote for every election. I am pleased to say that since that time, my mother has never missed voting for an election, local or otherwise. Those sacrifices of my parents and those of that generation are my pledge and oath to protect. I am here today to say that that being on our ballot is an insult and a direct threat to our democracy. The right to vote is so monumental for my people, not just my immediate family, but for my heritage, my culture. And for this council and this city to feel that it is necessary to eliminate the right to vote for its residents, who, by the way, are 65% African American, who share that heritage, who share that abuse, that heinous act of voter suppression by bloodshed, is shocking to me. I am moved beyond words to know that despite disagreements, I have respect for you all. But to have anything on the ballot that alludes that I lose my right to vote for all the things my parents endured in the South for me to have the right to vote is an outrage. I encourage you, If there is at any way possible to remove that from the ballot, do so. Otherwise, we will have no other choice than to pledge against this city and everyone running for re-election to say no to you all.
Our next speaker is Keith Harris.
Get some of your clerk, look like some of you already got my paperwork. Many people in Pontiac, Lansing, and in Washington agree with me. You know, we just had something in Jacksonville with 3 African Americans was just murdered by a white dude with a swastika on his AR-15. Now, when it comes down to our right to vote, you want to have a selection over an election? I'm surprised. Why don't you take some LGBTQ rights away? Why are we fighting, Mandelbaum? He wanted to kill you as bad as he wanted to kill me. He didn't want Jews here either.
Excuse me, I think, Council President, I
Yes.
think he's out of order. And
Okay,
I'm personally taking offense to this. So you heard,
I'll calm down.
I'm personally
I will
taking
calm down.
offense.
I'm offended. I'm offended.
I'm also offended by
But
what
I'm
you're
just
saying.
After Bloody Sunday,
Excuse me,
did the
excuse
clock
me.
stop yet? I said I'm calming down. But after Bloody Sunday in Selma, what all these people died on that bridge, got beaten just to have the right to vote. Here you telling me we got to repeat this again? The John Lewis Act. You're gonna overlook this man who got beat on that bridge. We have to stand up in Southfield, and I promise you, if that ballot slips through, I'm gonna raise holy hell, and I'm gonna make sure every black man and woman stand up, get out to vote. Let me tell you something, we done had some unsavories run for office. And you know I was out there advocating against them, even though they were related to me. And if she run again, I'll be out there even stronger. I'm all about, it don't matter if they're good or bad, they still got the right to run for office. You know, we've got 2 connected with selections now on this panel here. We want the right to vote, and I'm telling you something. A lot of people agree with me. Dave Coulter agree with me. A lot of people from Washington agree with me. A lot of people have died. And a lot of people don't really want to face the truth. But we already know who you want to put in that office. And we know what color you want to put in there.
Excuse me.
We-
I personally, through the chair,
Yes.
I am taking offense to this. And if
How
he,
is that offensive?
as a former city clerk of this city,
How is that
I'm
offensive?
taking offense.
But how?
I'm taking offense by what you just
we know
said.
what color. You're wasting, look, Ms. Banks, I got nothing but respect for you.
Well,
But you already took away some of my time.
If you can
What am I
state
supposed-
it in a different way.
Okay, we know you want to put someone white in there. Let's just lay it on the line. You want to strip the vote away from the African American community and put someone of your race in there. That ain't right. That ain't right. All I'm asking you to do is take this off the ballot. Please take it off the ballot, because you're going to racially divide this city, and a lot of people agree with me. I'm going to bring it to this city if it's not taken off the ballot.
The next speaker is Ethan Benedict.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm a recent transplant to the area, and I joined Transportation Riders United, a local group devoted to improving mass transit service in Metro Detroit and beyond. I was recently,
Can you move the microphone closer?
sorry, hello, better?
Yep.
Yes, member of TRU, working on improving mass transit, it was brought to my attention that there are some issues at the major DDOT and Smart Transfer Point along Northland Drive between Northwestern Highway and Greenfield Road. It's a major transfer point between 5 different SMART services and 3 different DDOT routes, and there are no there are no streetlights on that road at all. There are 2 bus shelters, one on each side of the road, and a lot of instructions saying which bus goes where, and it is difficult to read those instructions without bringing a flashlight along in the overnight hours. Additionally, there is the possibility of that bus transfer station being moved to JL Hudson Drive in the near future, depending on when Costco decides to open up its new facility. That is an even worse location for a bus transit center, as there are neither streetlights nor sidewalks there. Long story short, who does a person have to speak with to get sidewalks along JL Hudson Drive and streetlights on both Hudson Drive and Northland Drive? And what, if anything, can be done to improve the situation on Northland Drive in the immediate term? I'll take my answer sitting down.
All right. Our city planner has been taking notes. He's been working on different bus stops and some of the amenities there, so he can take a look at what your comments are.
Which gentleman?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Greg Keeler.
Greg Keeler. As this is a city council meeting with a big logo behind your head saying City Council, and I said that the peanut gallery should not be answering your questions. Last week showed that when I asked about the easement, that there were 2 things that came out of here, 2 different discussions that were totally opposite of what the peanut gallery has suggested. It still didn't answer Mrs. Harris' question. Mrs. Harris' question was, has anybody said no, any entity said no to their easement, which was not answered, which has not been answered. And if they have said no, how come these 2 women that are black can't say no as well? If that is a possibility. And why are they being asked over and over again? Did you also do it to the same entities that possibly have said no over and over again to them? And then to the offense. It's offensive that somebody had to write a song. Billie Holiday had to write a song, Strange Fruit, Hanging from the Poplar Tree, in response to what was happening to us because we wanted to vote, because we just wanted to live or be people. That is very offensive. And then they wanted to arrest her for singing the song. Not for saying any hateful words, just for singing a song. So we have endured all types of intolerance. Say any little thing out of line that makes you feel uncomfortable. We want to change history and don't want to play like this is part of our history. But it is part of our history. I remember the water hose being turned on people in Detroit for the simple fact of wanting to vote or voice their opinion. I am proud that I am able to come here and sit down and voice my opinion. I am proud that most of you even speak to me afterward, or answer me or tell me stuff. White, black, everything. I'm proud of all that. And that shows we have moved forward. But let us not slip backwards. And please answer the question of the easement. Why were these two widows not able to say yes or not able to say no and wasted all this money, as the administrator said on this? And has anybody else said no? And me and your lawyer have had this question and talked about it.
Your time is up.
Okay?
Our next speaker is Vanessa Burrell.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of my household and my neighbors across the street at 27616 Aberdeen. And I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago about a problem with our landscaping after the construction. And I want to read a letter from the Pinkstons. This is from Mrs. Pinkston. Dear Southfield City Council, thank you in advance for taking the time to hear my concerns. My husband and I have been proud homeowners at 27616 Aberdeen within the Woodland Park subdivision for the past 11 years. We endured several winter seasons of awful potholes on our block, so when we received the notice that our street was next to be repaired, we were elated. My neighbor and I complied with all instructions given by the company repairing our asphalt. We parked when where directed, ceased to use water when informed of shut-off dates without complaints. Unfortunately, I noticed that the workers failed to respect our property. On multiple occasions, I witnessed empty pop bottles, pizza containers, and other debris left on our lawns and sidewalks. Workers took liberties to park on well-manicured lawns. It saddens me to see such disregard in our neighborhood. Over the winter of 2022, a multitude of heavy supplies, materials needed to complete the project was left on their property. So this goes on to say, after all that, we spoke to someone here about the problems with the lawn being totally disarrayed. They seeded it with bad seed and have weeds, and that has not been corrected. The lawn is still terrible. They were unable to be here this evening. I complained about my lawn on the San Quentin side, and for some reason they chose to reseed the Aberdeen side, because we're both corner properties. And again, with bad seed. So my lawn that looked okay in the front on the Aberdeen side doesn't look so great anymore because that same weedy type of seed was planted. So I just want to know what our council will do to really enforce that this is taken care of, because I shouldn't have to keep coming back for the same issue. And the Pinkstons, Mrs. Pinkston's a nurse, she works 12 hours. It's hard for them to get here. But I told them I would come and speak on their behalf as well as my own. So I'm hoping that this is the last time I have to petition our council to try to take care of this problem, because it has not been rectified.
If you can leave the two addresses with our city clerk, we can forward the information to our city engineer who can take a look at it.
Okay, I'll leave this letter.
Yeah, but if it's, and we can also follow up with the city engineer as
And I
well.
have the pictures this time, too.
You have a- And they came and reseeded, but it's still not working, so. Okay.
Because we just really wanted to get it fixed.
Are they gonna redo it? Are they gonna redo it?
Next, we have a presentation for Women's Equality Day.
Good evening, council. Tonight I have a joint mayor-council resolution in support of Women's Equality Day. Whereas the women's suffrage movement started before the Civil War, however, it would take until August 26, 1920, for the U.S. Congress to add the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution granting women the right to vote. And whereas, generated because of lower wages, poor working conditions, limited opportunities for women in the workplace, the women's rights movement united women across the United States in peaceful campaign to fight for equal rights and privileges which were excuse me, available to male citizens. And whereas, because of millions of women who planned, organized, marched, petitioned, and lobbied in every field of business and labor, they changed the world for generations of women to receive better working conditions, fair wages, and equal rights. And whereas the month of August is declared the month to highlight the contributions of women events in history and modern-day society. Such women as Kate Mullaney, an organizer of the first all-female labor union, Maggie Lena Walker, first African-American woman in the U.S. to create a charter a bank, and Norma Yeager, first woman stockholder to be permitted on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, as well as many, many, many others. And whereas in commemoration of the passage of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, granting women the right to vote, we recognize and commend the women who led the peaceful campaign granting women the right to vote. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and City Council, City of Southfield, County of Oakland, State of Michigan, do hereby declare August 26th, 2023 as Women's Equality Day in the City of Southfield, and encourage all residents and businesses of Southfield to reflect and celebrate the diverse and historic accomplishments of women in our community.
All right, Council, do we have a?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we accept the presentation as presented.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Banks, to approve the presentation of the joint resolution for Women's Equality Day in Southfield. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Standing next to me is a person I think all of you know, who's been a fighter for women's equality for many, many years, Miss Roberta Cotman. Ms. Cotman would like to say a few words. And
this is an historic day that we in this chamber again recognize women's rights and women's concern. It began in the city of Southfield in 2007. Brenda Lawrence was mayor. And on through 2008, up until the present day, the city of Southfield has recognized the concerns for women and the U.S. Congress. Southfield is 65 years old, and for 15 of those years, this chamber has been recognized for women. And in 2008, Jennifer Granholm, governor at that time, and some of you don't even know her, recognized in 2008 Women's Equality Day. The city of Southfield, we cannot forget this. We must preserve our legacy. We must preserve our legacy and move forward with this.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Council. Next, we have 3 sets of minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that we accept the minutes of the regular meeting of July 21, 2023, July 10, 2023, and the regular meeting minutes of July 24, 2023, and regular meeting minutes of August 14, 2023, as presented.
It has been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Hoag, to approve the regular meeting minutes of July 10th, July 24th, and August 14th. Council, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have our consent agenda. Council, do you have any items you'd wish to be pulled for further discussion?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I motion that we approve consent agenda items A, B, C, and D.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Hoag, supported by Councilman Cruz, to approve consent agenda item A, authorization to renew a grant agreement between the State of Michigan, the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, and the City of Southfield. Item B, authorization to purchase ammunition for the Police Department. Item C, receipt of bids on printing the Southfield Living newsletter. And item D, AppSpace digital signage software subscription renewal. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have our public hearing and site plan. The first item is PCZR 23-0001, a rezoning request of Losser and 10 Mile LLC to conditionally rezone from OS office service to B1 neighborhood business.
Sorry. We've got here is a property on Losser, just south of 10 Mile on the east side. It is, the 2 parcels in question are actually, the north parcel is already zoned B1 conditionally a number of years back, 2015 or 2016 as I recall. The southern parcel is zoned OS and is looking to rezone to B1 to match the north parcel with the same list of conditions. They're under common ownership now. The single rezoned parcel didn't turn out to be viable for the development that was proposed originally. At this point, they're looking at a multi-tenant, 4 or 5 tenants, 9,800 square foot multi-tenant commercial building to be anchored at one end by a urgent care with a pharmacy. This is a close-up of the site aerial showing the property as it backs up to residence on Lois Lane. It's a fairly deep property. That heavily wooded area in the back is to remain in woods as part of a conservation easement. There was a question at the last meeting as to where the other urgent cares were. This map actually shows the locations of the other 12 and the proposed, which is the number 13. The majority of them are on over by Southfield and Greenfield and 12 Mile. There are not a lot in the middle of the city where this one is proposed. Just some photos of the area. The top photo is a photograph from the parking lot to the north of the property. The bottom left is across Losser, and the bottom right is looking from Lois Lane toward the back of those residential properties and the back of this property on Losser. There we go. As you can see, the current zoning is B1 and OS. OS part is what we're considering for the conditional rezoning. It is all future land use local mixed use, which is consistent with either OS or B1. This is a site plan. As you can see, there's the building there with its 5 tenant spaces, parking around, the drive-through for the pharmacy on the north side, loading zone tucked in behind the building near the dumpster enclosures. Here's just a basic floor plan. They've got an actual initial floor plan for the urgent care pharmacy. The other spaces do not have tenants yet. As you can see, here's the landscape plan. There's trees and a hedge along the Lasser side to block those headlights in the fronts of those cars. Fair amount of tree planting around the property, and then that rear area is to remain undisturbed under the conservation area. And there is an area that's kind of between the back of the pavement and the trees that are being planted. That's land banked parking. In case they should need additional parking in the future, they could develop it in that location. They do meet the parking requirement as presently proposed, though. Some elevations of the building. And then the proposed rezoning conditions, just to clarify those. First is there are some use exclusions. The use of the property as a pawn shop is prohibited. The use of the property for retail business, retail business marketing or selling firearms or accessories is prohibited. Sexually oriented businesses are prohibited. A dining establishment greater than 2,000 square feet is prohibited. Marijuana-related businesses are prohibited, and no other window except for the pharmacy for drive-up is allowed. The last one is just the conservation easement that will be entered into to preserve permanently the back 76 feet, even though they're actually not developing the back 150. Here's a color rendering of it, and the petitioner is present to answer any questions.
Good evening. I'm Carol Thurber with Noack and Fraus, the engineer for the site, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Everything's been covered pretty well.
Can you also give your address for the record, please?
Our address is 48680 Van Dyke, and that's in Shelby Township, 48317.
Okay, did you have anything you wanted to add before we have our public hearing?
I really don't have anything to add. We had done the same research that had been done for the local urgent cares as was requested at the last meeting, and came up with the same count. There is really not one within 2 miles of this site. And we also have both the doctor and his partner here, and they had completed feasibility studies before looking at this property, also showing the warrant for the use on this property.
Okay, so we will have a public hearing, and then after, if there's any questions that need to be answered or asked from our council, we can do that as well. I will now open a public hearing for PCZR 23-0001 for a rezoning request of Losser and 10 Mile LLC to conditionally rezone from OS Office Service to B1 Neighborhood Business located on the east side of Losser Road south of 10 Mile. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Please give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council and Mayor and everyone else. I'm Earl Crum. My address is 27126 Pierce, Southfield, Michigan, 48076. I realize that each community should have urgent care facilities, and the questions were asked at the last council meeting, how many urgent care facilities are there in Southfield? I'm not against urgent care facilities. However, I believe that we should not overpopulate Southfield with urgent care facilities. Each community should have their own number, and Southfield should not be the battlefield for every other community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Council, did we have any questions? Councilman Frazier?
Yes. I stand to be corrected if if I say something wrong, but it seems to me at the last meeting when the presentation was made, there were two pieces of property. The the major piece of property satisfied the parking, but the petitioner bought another piece of property just in case there was a need for additional parking when the other business moved in. My question is, are those two separate pieces of property now, or do they join the two pieces of property or is there the two pieces of property separate with an easement, or how are the two pieces handled?
There are presently two parcels. They will have to combine them to build this building, otherwise the building would cross the property line, which is not permitted. So they will have to combine the properties prior to getting a permit for construction.
Well, why wouldn't they have done it by now?
They could have done it at any time, but they will absolutely have to do it prior to a permit being issued.
Pardon me?
They will have to do it before a permit can be issued because you can't have a building crossing a property line without a firewall.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
There's got to be setback and all, so.
Right.
If it's against the other piece of property, there wouldn't be enough setback, so they couldn't approve the project unless they did have the proper setback.
That's correct.
So it seemed to me that they would join those two pieces of property just to make the presentation.
If I could, just give you a little background. That is a condition of our approval, that the two lots be combined. But if you recall, this northern piece was before you several years ago. At that time, we had also recommended that they reach out to the applicant or the owner to the south to combine it to make it a better project. They were unable to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the site was just too narrow, too small to develop for anything. That's why it never got developed. I think this is a much better plan. They were able to negotiate the purchase or purchase option for the property to the south. And typical to your point, because of what Mr. Payson had said about crossing property lines, that is a standard condition that we put in. Once they're confident they got their approvals, they can submit for the lot combination. So the conditions are subject to the two lots being combined.
Okay, and since they own both of them, there shouldn't be any controversy about joining. It's just paperwork.
There shouldn't, and I mean, I know the applicant and the representatives are here if they want to shed any additional light, but that parcel to the south was not available at the previous iteration of the conditional zoning.
That is correct, and it is absolutely the intention to combine the lots as part of the approval process.
And both pieces of property have clear title so that, because what I'm thinking about is Northland and all the problems that we had with easements and shake hand agreements 40 years ago, and I want this to be a success.
Right.
So.
Right.
I just want to make sure that there's no impediments in getting it done.
That's correct, and there are no impediments, and it is fully the intention to complete the lot combination process.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
All right. Council, any other questions? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move the approval of PCZR 23-0001, the rezoning request of the Lasser and 10 Mile LLC, as presented.
Support.
Which includes the conditions set forth in the resolution.
Correct.
Okay. It has been moved by Councilwoman Taylor, supported by Councilman Brightwell, to approve PCZR 23-0001, rezoning request of Lasser and 10 Mile LLC to conditionally rezone from OS Office Service to B1 Neighborhood Business for property located on the east side of Lasser Road, south of 10 Mile, as presented. Council, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to introduce ordinance number 1775.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilwoman Taylor, to introduce ordinance number 1775. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And next, we have the site plan review for PSP 23-0011 for Lasser and 10 Mile to construct a 9,860 square foot multi-tenant building, including an urgent care, pharmacy, and retail located on the east side of Lasser Road, south of 10 Mile.
Thank you, Council President. This is the same project for which you just voted the conditional rezoning on. This is the attached site plan for the plans we previously discussed. It does have a number of conditions, just tying it to the plans that are before you and making clear that those shall be the controlling documents.
All right. Council, did you have any further questions? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move the approval of site plan review PSP 23-0011 is the site plan review for Lasser and 10 Mile LLC as presented here tonight.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilwoman Taylor, supported by Councilman Hoag, to approve PSP 23-0011, site plan review for Lasser and 10 Mile LLC to allow for the construction of a 9,860 square foot multi-tenant building, including urgent care, pharmacy, and retail, located on the east side of Lasser, south of 10 Mile. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, next we have a public hearing for PSLU 23-0009, a special use request by Joseph Nadiv to allow for a group daycare maximum of 12 children in an existing home located at 24346 Pierce Avenue.
Thank you, Council President. This is as noted, it is on the corner of Pierce and Stratford, 24346 Pierce. It is the southeast corner, zoned residential R3. This is a special use to allow a group daycare in a home with a maximum of 12 children per the state licensing. This is just a close-up photo of the house on the left, and then or of the site, and then on the right is the actual home on the corner. The zoning is R3 residential, the land use single family, those are consistent. We do have floor plans for the house that were submitted. There's the main floor on the left, the second floor on the right. The basement area, those do meet the minimum required floor areas in our ordinance. For the main floor itself meets that requirement. And then we do have the petitioner present to answer any questions.
Please give your name and address for the record, and then add anything you would like before we open the public hearing.
Joseph Nadiv, 24346 Pierce, and this is my wife.
I'm Deborah Nadiv, 24346 Pierce Street.
Did you want to add anything?
I think last week we fleshed out a lot of issues, and I think that the overall support that came out from the commission was very positive, so we'll be happy to take any questions if they're necessary.
We'll entertain questions after the public hearing, get them all together. So I will open the public hearing for PSLU 23-0009, a special use request to allow for a group daycare at 24346 Pierce Avenue. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Please give your name and address for the record.
Toby Rhodes, 17001 New Jersey, 248-569-7189. I live around the corner from this location. Now, their daycare is on 10 Mile. People have to buy buildings, they have to pay for playgrounds, and the children are within the buildings and they're within the playgrounds, and they have to pay for that. They're not asking for any special use within the subdivision. Now, since they've been in Southfield, or in this subdivision, I know me and my neighbors have noticed that, they have toys on the front lawn. They'll park their bike in front of neighbors' driveways. We see materials strewn all around the house. See children playing in the street, interfering with traffic, because the location of where this supposed daycare is going to be is right at Pierce and Stratford. And that's like the very center of the subdivision. So if you're trying to get to 696, you got to go past that house. And you'll see children playing out in the street. You'll see them riding bikes everywhere. And if there's a collision or an accident and somebody gets hurt, somebody in the neighborhood is going to be blamed for having this thing around. Now, that creates, that's already creating a nuisance. As it is right now, it's a nuisance. And now you're talking about having even more children. That's going to create an even bigger problem. And not only that, then you get spillover onto New Jersey where they're coming in front of my house, riding their bikes, playing around. And I'm trying to do work on my house. I'm trying to maintain it. It takes a lot of material, a lot of equipment, a lot of time. And you see them just running roughshod all over the neighborhood, even though they don't even live on the block. So I don't understand why in the world they would want to have a daycare center right in the center neighborhood. And then on top of that, they want to discriminate against black people. They're saying that you got to have the right religion. Well, nobody black has that religion. So, they're discriminating against the majority of the population in the neighborhood. So, you got a public nuisance, and then on top of that, they could just buy property on 10 Mile, because there's a property right at 10 Mile and Pierce that they could buy and turn that into a daycare. I don't understand why don't they just use that. At least it's on a main street, and it's not right in the middle of the neighborhood. And on top of that, it's right across from the park. So you have people going to the park and got all these children all over the place. They're running up and down Pierce, they're running down New Jersey, they're running down Stratford. Right now it's just, and I've been talking to my neighbors, and we've been noticing, they said, this is really aggravating. Because it's not like they came to us as the neighbors and talked about, say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. We'd like to get your input. We'd like to get your buy-in and find out what you think about it. No, it's like they're trying to go behind our backs. And the only reason I found out is I talked to a neighbor. He said, they're having that meeting tonight. I said, oh, really? I said, I'm going to go there and say something about this. So this is just going to create a whole lot of problems if this thing is approved in my neighborhood. And my neighbors are not going to like it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Devorah Gold, and I live at 15110 Dartmouth Street in Oak Park, Michigan. I am a licensed care provider in Oak Park, and this is why I'm here tonight. But just to reflect on what the last speaker said, he is referring to the neighborhood children that are on the streets after school hours. What I am here to help talk about is a daycare that is during business and school hours. That is when daycares function. So the problems that he's seeing in the neighborhood does not reflect a daycare, a home daycare. So I live in Oak Park, and I'm friends with the Nadivs, and I've been amazed to hear since last March the roller coaster ride that they've been put on, just asking, will you zone or will you not zone? When I opened my daycare 4 years ago in Oak Park, the city did not come into my house. They went around the perimeter of the home. They made sure that it was a gated-in backyard. They signed the zoning. In this country, the daycare regulation for children, the licensing is state governed. And I dealt strictly with the state. And they have their experience and their training and their inspectors, and I worked with them. So even if you were to zone in the Nadivs, they would not be able to open their daycare unless they met all the requirements and regulations of the state. So the nitty-gritty details of safety and the upstairs and downstairs and the ratio of children is really all state regulated, and they're very on top of you, and they come in and spot check you, and they work together. They work together with you. The one thing that, as a city council, that's very important for you to decide and to think about is, do you want to zone in home daycares? On the one hand, you might have grievances from residents. You might assume it'll cause traffic on a block in the morning. So my humble opinion is that the daycare is running during business hours. Most people are not home. It actually adds safety to the neighborhood with a little bit of come and go. Elderly people that are home enjoy seeing the children or the little bit activity of a little extra cars on the block. But I would humbly suggest, speaking to Oak Park, Berkeley, Farmington Hills, what do other cities do? Do they allow, I mean, for sure Oak Park allows it because I'm licensed. Do they, if they allow it, has it caused them grievances? So that's the con of maybe having the daycares. And the pro is, especially with this gentle lady that spoke so beautifully about the equal rights of women that Southfield was so involved in. Well, now that all these women have equal rights and we're all going out to work in the morning, the Southfield want to help these working mothers and provide convenient and adequate and convenient daycare for the residents of the city.
Your time is up.
Okay, and one important thing, one quick. Last summer, I received an email from the state offering me, stating that there is a crisis of shortage in daycares. And would I
Your
could
time is up.
apply to, okay. Thank you so much for listening.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to PSLU 23-0009? Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Council, did you have any specific questions for the petitioner? Councilman Brightwell?
This is just a follow-up from the last time you were here. And the rationale for this is that based on the last time we had one of these, we got a pretty good description of what would you propose, well, what is the fire plan? If the fire breaks out, how do you propose to handle this?
So as we mentioned last week, the state has regulatory rules around the fire plans in the houses. So the way it's designed, and I actually have the technical manual with me if you'd like me to cite out of it. But essentially you need 2 egresses from each floor of the home, with one of them with direct-to-ground access. So that means that the front door of the home will count because it lets you out directly to the ground. And the stairwell on the second floor of the house down to the first floor also counts. For the secondary exit, you can either exit via, we have a back door that allows egress into the backyard, and it states in the technical manual that a window will count as a secondary egress on the second floor. They also require fire extinguishers on all floors where the children are going to be kept. So we have fire safety there, as well as smoke detectors in every room that's occupied by the children.
Okay, so, you know, when I was in the family forming stage of life, I had a nurse, we refer to kids as little people. So how are you going to have basic training for your little people running around your house? How are you going to have fire drills and all that stuff?
So it's also mandated in the technical manual.
I know it's mandated, but do you know, will it happen? I'm not, just tell me what would happen.
So that's something that the state provides within their orientation program, which we cannot even apply for until we have approval from the city. So that's something that the state has a methodology that they will tell us what they expect from us. But we haven't gotten there yet for the specifics of what they expect of us. I could come up with something now, but that would be doing a disservice because this has already been fleshed out at the state level.
Okay. All right. Last question. This also goes back to my family forming stage of life. What happens when a parent is running late to pick up their child and 6 p.m. is come and gone?
Okay, so obviously you can never leave a child without supervision. So either I would stay with that child or the other adult would stay with the child, or we would call the parent and just ask them what they would like us to do if they have another relative that could come and pick up the child. They have emergency contacts on the actual form of people that we can contact if we need the child to be picked up if the parent is running late.
Oh, okay. I'm supportive of this. Those are just questions I like to get flushed out for these kind of situations simply because, you know, I like little people. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in my experience also, if you contact the parent and they need to pick up their child, they cannot come to pick up their child. So you can also bring the child with you if need be, if you're, have somewhere to go. Something. Right, or they can go to another child's home after daycare. If a different child could bring that child home with them if need be.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Council, any other questions? Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. I think this question is to the clerk. I noticed that the public hearing notice that we have in our packet has 3 different public hearings on it. So is this a notice that you send to the residents in the area? There's a site plan and a rezoning for the 10-mile location, and then also the special use request for the group daycare. So is this notice with all 3 hearings sent to people around the daycare, and then also?
So, to my memory, the clerk's office doesn't send out the notices to the neighborhood. We publish it. And then if I'm correct, planning department sends it out.
Yeah, if I could clarify, yes, we have to have a notice published in the paper of record. And then in addition to that, we send to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject parcel. So there would be separate notices sent out for the Lucerne 10-mile versus the special use for the childcare. And then if there's any registered homeowners associations, we also contact their board to let them know in addition, even if they're outside that 350 feet. Now, the state only requires 300-foot notification, but we have always in Southfield gone beyond that limit.
So just for clarification again, the planning department sends out the notices for the public hearings for the meeting this evening,
That's
not the
correct.
clerk's office?
We prepare them.
Yeah, we send out the ones for the planning commission. We provide those notices to the clerk's office for mailing for the council meetings.
And then the clerk's office mails 350 notices out?
I'm sorry, I don't remember offhand.
The planning department handles the notices for planning commission.
Right, I'm talking about tonight.
That same list is prepared and sent to the clerk's office, and they are the ones that actually send out the notice for the council meetings to anyone within 350 feet. That's not 350 notices. So we follow the same procedure. So property owners are being notified twice, once at the planning commission, once at council, and in both cases, they have to be published 15 days prior to the meeting in the paper record, the paper on record. So there's 2 forms. Additional notification is done on the website and posted on the bulletin board. So we do 4 different types of notifications for each public hearing.
Okay, because everything's listed on one piece of paper here, and I was just
and again,
curious.
to save money, we publish them in the same ad on the public hearing for the paper, but individual notices go out to individuals surrounding the subject parcels.
Okay, thank you. That was question number 1. Question number 2, because this is a special use request, and this has nothing to do with your home presently, but we have had complaints, several council members, maybe everyone, regarding there's some areas within the city where toys are left out on the front lawn, bicycles are there, and it's just like an eyesore. Is there any way that in the special use request we can ask that any of the children's like toys in the evening be put in the rear yard? That nothing is on the front yard so that it doesn't look sloppy to the neighborhood?
Well, again, in this particular case, try to separate children that are living there and leaving toys out or bikes versus the actual daycare, which is younger children that are being picked up at the end of each day. They're required to either have a fenced-in backyard of a certain amount of space or within, is it 300 feet of, 300 to 500 feet of a public park. So I guess as far as, they are right, there are state requirements regarding the actual licensing of the daycare, but since it's a group daycare home, 7 to 12, we have special land use conditions, and any of the reasonable conditions could be added to each individual approval. So if you wanted to add that as an additional condition relating to the daycare only, that might be reasonable.
Right, and I guess that's what I'm suggesting, is just to the daycare only, and again, just in the evening hours, so, you know, we don't receive additional calls that, you know, there's toys scattered all over, which, you know, in the pictures, we don't see any, and I'm assuming the children are gonna be in the rear yard, in the fenced-in area, but, you know, just don't leave the bicycles or the balls or a playhouse or anything in the front yard during the day. So I don't know if council's interested in adding a condition like that, just for the daycare portion only.
I just want to add one additional clarification. The providers are required to live in the home, so they may be there with their own children living at the facility. That is a requirement that they own. They occupy the residence that they're performing a daycare in. In many cases, they may have children of their own that have toys, but I think it might be, at least for consideration, reasonable to have any daycare toys put away at the end of the day. Enforcement with that might be a different animal.
I don't know how council feels on that.
So I can tell you that I've had very lengthy and exhausting conversations with code enforcement about that issue across the entire city.
Right.
With toys and bikes and lawn equipment, you name it, being left out.
Correct.
There's no code that says they can't leave it out as long as it's not blocking a driveway or sidewalk. Code enforcement, it was brought up a few years ago at Neighborhood Services that they felt that was overtaxing and overburdening residents that have small children, if, you know, because if in case one of their kids accidentally leaves a bike out overnight and they get a ticket or something like that, it just, you know, it opens a can of worms. Personally, I feel that I agree that we can put a restriction on a group daycare, but I think that it's going to add, as the planner mentioned, they have their own children living in the house. And I think it's an undue burden for the other residents, because they'll say, well, if you can make a restriction for one house, make a restriction citywide, and I think that's going to cause some unfair pressure on residents and especially code enforcement. But that's my personal feeling. I'm open to anything else from council as well.
Well, I think that's a separate issue from what's before us right now. I think that's a problem that I see, whether or not it's a daycare, group home, or whatever, it's a problem. So I think that's something outside of what is before us today.
I would just agree with that. I think it's going to be really hard to wrap your arms around it, but it's something that, I don't know, maybe it will always be that way, but maybe neighborhood committee and code enforcement can get together and maybe work out a little something.
Okay.
But I think tonight is probably going to be,
Yeah.
we're going to do it tonight.
All right.
I agree with you, Councilman.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Councilman Frazier?
Yeah, we asked a ton of questions last time they were here, and they answered the questions. Excuse me. The question tonight was, from a neighbor, was that there were kids in the street and on the sidewalk and running around. And that, I think that would be a really outside problem. I can understand the concern, but it'd be an outside problem with the daycare kids being 1.5 years old to 3.5 years old. I don't think you're going to see very many 1.5-year-old kids running around on the sidewalk and out in the street, so I am not concerned about that. If there's other kids that are running in the street, that's a different thing that's already been discussed this evening. So I just wanted to answer the concern of the neighbors that by making this a daycare center, that there will be a lot more children out running around the street. I just don't think that's going to be a problem. So that's my point of view.
Okay, thank you. Council, any other further questions?
Mr.
Council-
President?
Yes.
I move that we approve PSLU 23-0009, a special use request to allow for a group daycare maximum of 12 children in an existing home.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Hoag, supported by Councilman Brightwell, to approve PSLU 23-0009, special use request by Joseph Nadiv to allow for a group daycare in the existing home located at 24346 Pierce, with the recommendations listed by the Planning Department. Any further questions? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Next, we have agenda items for discussion and/or action. Item A is a request for a public hearing for Epitech for a PA 328 tax abatement for Travelers Towers located at 26555 Evergreen Road.
Good evening, Council President Mandelbaum, Mr. Mayor, Honorable Board. As you stated, we did receive a request from Epitech for a tax abatement. They are looking to relocate into our city center district. I have Mark Ruma with Epitech, who has a short presentation. At the conclusion, we are looking for City Council to set 2 public hearings on September 11th, one to establish the Industrial Development District, the other to place their request into the district. So I'm going to introduce Mark and have him start. I'm going to say your name and address.
Thank you, Shelley. Southfield address or home address? Okay. My name's Mark Ruma. We have our current location at 24800 Denzo Drive in Southfield. So good evening. I was told to keep this short and sweet, so I can handle short. I'll do my best to make it sweet. We have a short presentation prepared, and if I go, perfect. Epitech is an IT, engineering, and professional services company, a staffing company that people want to work for and companies want to do business with. It was founded in 1978 by Jerry Shepard, who is a native Detroiter, and as a black-owned business, owned and operated since the late 70s. We've met many challenges and opportunities that set the DNA and culture of a successful staffing company, and Southfield's played a very big role in that. Today, Epitech is a woman-owned and operated company. It's rooted in the community, and we believe in partnership as well. And we think we're all in partnership to deliver excellence. And the city of Southfield is our launch pad. It is our home base, and we're thrilled to have the city of Southfield as part of Epitech's success formula. We've listed some of the impact that we believe our project will have in terms of moving into what was once known as the Travelers Building. We're taking the 17th floor. We've got some pictures of the building here. We're going to create 78 jobs. Currently, our office supports 42 people. We'll be adding another 78. We will have Epitech is a national business. The way we're constructing our space is to be able to bring our national employees from other states to work and collaborate in the city of Southfield. They'll be sleeping in Southfield hotels and going to the restaurants. And And we're very excited about this space. Epitech has had a partnership with Lawrence Tech and the Michigan Council of Women in Technology. We host many STEM events, user groups like .NET user group, which is a computer programming user group, Java user groups, and we're bringing people into our space. We're going to be doing lots of catering and lots of hosting of events. We believe that the impact is substantial. Here's a kind of an outlay of what those jobs will look like. As I said, we're a staffing company. We're recruiting. We're finding people jobs. We have increase in recruitment, increase in sales, IT, finance, and HR. It's an across-the-board plan. This is what was once known as the Travelers Building. It's just directly across from the library over by TGI Fridays and behind Tropical Smoothie. And we're taking the 17th floor, the majority of the 17th floor, a little over 3/4 of that 17th floor, which is the second floor from the top. 18th is the penthouse. Here's the significant capital investment for 17,000 square feet. Tenant improvement dollars of $1.2 million, furniture, fixture, and equipment of $943,000 for a total capital investment of $2.14 million. And with that, thank you for the opportunity to introduce you all to Epitech and our plans to invest capital in our new headquarters that will be located at 2655 Evergreen. We respectfully request the council review our presentation and impact and grant a 100% tax abatement for personal property tax for the lease duration, which is a 10-year duration.
Thank you, Mark. I just wanted to add a couple of comments. Epitech is current on their taxes, so we have verified that. Our city assessor stated that currently Epitech pays approximately $6,000 in taxes. This will increase with their new investment. However, the city would be held harmless over this time, so it would have no negative effect on our budget by granting an abatement. So again, we are looking to set 2 public hearings on September 11th.
Council, any questions? Councilman Frazier?
Yeah. Could you explain that again? How we can give away taxes and not be, and we're held harmless?
Sure. So the city of Southfield, the state has allocated a certain dollar amount of reimbursement to the local government each year, and that dollar amount was set in 2013. And so any new personal property that is brought in is not going to increase that dollar amount. It's an agreement that the city has with the state, and so it's locked in at a certain value. So if we have an increase, it's not going to change that number, and if we have a decrease, it doesn't change that number either.
Okay, and a certain value is?
That, I'm sorry, our city assessor's not here today, and I don't know if the city clerk has any answer to that. We can have that number for you next week.
Because, something's rattling around in my head. It's $40,000 of personal property. I don't know.
Our city treasurer is coming to the rescue.
Thank you. Irv?
So what happened was in 2013, what Shelley was referring to, that's when the state decided to do away with the personal property taxes for the small taxpayers, $40,000 taxable value and below that. Then it was raised to $80,000, now it's going up to $180,000. But what happened was to make us whole, because the city of Southfield relied on personal property taxes in a substantial way, we would have been negatively affected to the tune of about $7.5 million approximately. And so to make us whole, the state said, we're going to cap you at the level that you were at prior to us changing the legislation. And so anything that you lost, we're going to make sure that you're reimbursed back to that level. So as long as we don't exceed the level that we were at 2013, then we will get reimbursed from the state of Michigan. They true up the number every year to make sure that we're held harmless on that. So as long as we're granting the tax abatement and we keep ourselves below that 2013 level, the state will give us the reimbursement.
And what happens if they bring in new equipment?
If they, I mean, that's fine. The goal is to encourage businesses to expand. That's why we're doing this tax abatement. So then after 10 years, then it will be on the tax rolls, and then we'll be able to have, and also it increases the building value, the real property value is being increased as the occupancy goes up and as these companies expand and grow. This helps our overall property values for the city of Southfield. So that's the incentive.
Thank you, Irv.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Brightwell?
With respect to the, current work-at-home scenario in the business environment, and clearly, I know this is a positive for businesses, but what are your projections? Because I'm just trying to see, after 10 years, will you have less employees utilizing the facility, more employees? I know your projections are there, but dealing with reality right now, even GM and Ford, they're in flux about what to do with their employees. So what do you anticipate utilizing the space that you have to its fullest capacity?
Yeah, it's a great question. Many companies and staffing are moving virtual. And Epitech has always been a contrarian thinker in the way that we're going to make our base here in Southfield. The people business is hard to do virtually. Quite frankly, we're much better when we're sitting side to side like this. We're much better when we bring people into the office. Now we need a reason to bring them in the office. And we're going to build a beautiful space to bring people into office. We have to justify the commute. We have to justify the travel from out of town. We have to be a destination. And we talk about an office place, not an office space. So this is really this is a little bit of a gamble and a long bet in terms of, and a 10-year bet, that we think we're going to differentiate ourselves as a market leader that's been in business since 1978. And we've had the decades where we've gone up and down and rode many of the bumps. So we believe bringing us into a central location and working more collaboratively, and the way our space is designed to bring people into the space and to host groups, we feel that that's going to set us apart as a staffing company. We've made decisions like this in the past that have set us apart, and we'll believe we'll get a similar result with this decision as well. And we're asking for the city to participate and help us be successful in Southfield. Does that make sense? So in terms of the numbers, we have the seats and we have the opportunities, and we believe that we'll deliver on the people and the projections that we have here. And we're already making those strides. We're hiring local, and we're already moving towards those numbers.
Sure. But you did answer the question, and this is a slight, I like the way you're thinking. So, but we visited with a company 6 or 7 months ago here in Southfield. They have, let's say, 130 employees on their roll, but they only got space for 80. So they plan to not have everybody in the office on a continuous basis. And so that's when you say you're growing, in 10 years you're going to be at this kind of capacity. But capacity utilizing that space, I don't know what, well, obviously, you spoke to it, and like I said, you
But I
checked
can-
some things I'm aware of.
I can speak directly to what you're talking about. You know, the world is virtual. We already know people are operating virtual. We also know people are working on premise or on site. We believe it's not virtual or on-prem. It's virtual and on-prem. So, will 120 people come to the office on a Wednesday? No. But we will have 120 people working locally, some coming in on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, when it makes sense. Our current model right now is 3 days virtual and 2 days in the office. And we're planning to move to 3 days in the office and 2 days virtual. So we'll have some coordination in order to utilize that space properly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, council, any other questions? If not, you can ask them on September 11th.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I move that we approve 2 public hearings on Monday, September 11th, 2023. First, to consider the request for establishment of industrial development district. And then the second one, a public hearing requesting for assistance from Epitech for approval of a personal property tax abatement.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilwoman Hoag, supported by Councilman Brightwell, to approve a council to conduct 2 public hearings on Monday, September 11th, 2023. First one, to consider a request for the establishment of an industrial development district pursuant to Public Act 198 of 1974 as amended. And a second public hearing requesting for assistance from Epitech for approval for personal property tax abatement under Public Act 328 of 1998 as amended. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
See you in a few weeks. Next, we have item B, receipt of bids for Washington Heights Water Main and Road Replacement Project.
Good evening. So this is this Washington Heights project. This is a big project. This includes road replacement, both of asphalt roads and concrete roads. We're replacing all the water main in this subdivision and making a significant investment in improving the drainage out there. So there's going to be a lot of storm sewer work as well. The city received 5 bids for this project. The acceptable low bid was submitted by Paymar Enterprises. The project is to be funded by our local streets and our water and sewer bond funds. The total cost of the project, including the 25% construction engineering and contingencies, is $16,460,358.82. The project is typically will start about a month after this award, so we're expecting late September start. The contractor will likely work most of the winter getting pipe in the ground, so in the spring they can start paving those first streets that they were impacting with the underground work. They will be working, we anticipate, all of next construction season as well, with the completion date as November of 2024. So when complete, this project will improve 4.5 miles of local roads. So this evening, just looking for your body to adopt the attached resolution which authorizes the project and then awards the project to Paymar Enterprises. This is our last big capital project that we are moving forward with award this year, so we're looking forward to getting started. This was one of our projects that HRC, Hubble, Roth & Clark, our engineering consultants, have been studying, and with the drainage issues for decades, actually, it goes back. So the water main needs are finally bringing the neighborhood to the priority to get in there and make all these improvements.
Council, any questions? Councilman Brightwell?
Lee, I think I know the answer to this. And since Herb is here and Mr. Zorn, where is this money coming from?
This project was budgeted out of local streets.
Local streets?
Yeah, local streets for the road portion, which is 40% of the project, and then water and sewer bond is paying for 60%.
Okay. And I know the local street money is gone, right? I mean,
You're
is this a
speaking of-
carryover?
No, this, you may be thinking of our road bond funds. This is
Right.
actually from local streets, our Act 51 dollars.
Okay, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Frazier?
Yeah, we were at the microphone. Earlier tonight, a lady came and was talking about the grass that was planted turned out to be less than the grass they tore up. What kind of rules do you have about replacing grass that gets torn up? And is it in the contract or what?
Yes, it is in the contract. So the contracts, we typically have two methods of restoration. It's either topsoil, seed, and mulch, or topsoil and hydroseed. And the hydroseed has the mulch mixed in with it. When we have a lot of ditch areas, sometimes we'll work with the contractor and their subs to see which is their preference. The ditches are a lot of times more challenging because of the slopes. If you get that seed down and you get a heavy rain too quick, it can wash some of the seed away. So our contracts are performance-based, so the contractor is not let off the hook until we have acceptable growth in any project area.
And who does the inspection on that to make sure that it's satisfactory to the, I mean, as satisfactory as it could be? There are going to be people that, no matter what you did, wouldn't be as satisfactory as it was before.
Right, so our consultants do the full-time inspection on site, and then I'm also part of the final inspection. So when we're walking the job site, if there's areas in question, then I get involved. But a lot of times on our projects, we've got a handful of properties that we're just struggling. Sometimes they've got, you know, they don't see a lick of shade in their front green belt all day long, and it's just hard to keep the new grass growth moist. The contractors are responsible for watering, but when they're watering, it's like they might be out once a day, and sometimes if, you know, depending on the time of year, it could probably stand to be watered 2 or 3 times a day. So we really try and plead with the residents early on when we have our public meeting to, you know, to help us with the watering once that seed goes down, and that's where we tend to see the best results. We always have some challenging spots though, and it will hold our contracts open, frankly, for sometimes until the next growth season. Again, we'll keep a contract open all winter just if we still have properties that we're not happy with the growth in the fall time. So.
Okay, and the second thing is, the lady complained about empty pop cans and stuff just left after the contractors went home. It ought to be part of their responsibility to make sure that it looks as good as it can when they leave.
Right, we do review that with them. Sometimes the contractors can get messy with that. It's good for us to have that feedback because we'll follow up with the contractors. We expect at the end of their workday, they should be walking around and make sure that they don't have debris lying around. Part of it, they need to make sure they've got a bag somewhere for their employees that are working to put their lunch garbage when they're done. So it's their responsibility to keep that site tidy.
Okay, as tidy as it can be. Understood that, you know, when you're using bulldozers and backhoes and stuff, that
Yeah.
it's not as tidy as it.
Right.
As
The
it was
dust
when they
and
started.
dirt we can't always control, but they can certainly pick up their trash at the end of the day.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
All right.
That's it.
Mayor Seibert?
Yeah, my observation about the, having been through this a number of times, my observation is not the grass seed, it's the soil that's used, the fill-in soil. It's taken, topsoil taken from someplace outside, seeds are in it, and unfortunately, the weeds seem to be more virulent than the grass seed. But many, many times, I think it's the dirt that has the weed seeds in it.
Yeah, and weeds don't mind drought, right? So our grass, our new grass is very sensitive and wanting to be kept moist, and the weeds, they'll grow in any conditions, it seems. So it's oftentimes after we start getting some growth, there's some weed and feed applications. So it goes on for a long time that we're working with the contractors to, make it acceptable.
I had another question. Lee, normally you go back and do re-restoration in September, correct, when it's cooler?
Yeah, the springtime and the fall time, those are our two major growth seasons for the grass. And, the contractors will be working on it in the summer, but if there's areas that really need to be hit hard with new seed, they will oftentimes wait until fall. So as we are communicating with residents that are calling whose yards, because there just always seems to be a handful that we're struggling with more, we just try and keep the communication open and that we're still working on it.
Well, I thought that was important for Ms. Burrell to note, since she's still here. I know typically that's the procedure, go back when it's cooler and more likely for the grass to grow.
All right, Councilwoman Taylor?
Yes, I just wanted to add that that our resident is here in the audience, and if you wouldn't mind speaking with her, for that specific, I think it's 2 properties, and we've talked about this several times, so just maybe the process that they'll be following. And the second question that I had is how do you handle the contractor if you get multiple complaints that they're leaving trash and stuff? I know you talk to them, but what, is there a process that follows, like if you get the same contractor with the same complaints 3, 4, 5 times, what is the process? What are you asking of them?
Yeah, so we have weekly or biweekly meetings on site. So typically when these type of complaints come up, the email goes out pretty quickly, even aside from our progress meetings, that we're getting complaints of garbage, and we try and be specific if there's certain streets, if they've got a crew, so that they know where to look and who their culprits are there. So, and generally the contractors are responsive to those type of complaints. So overall, there's a lot of different contractors that work on one job. We are awarding the contract to Paymar Enterprises, but they may have a different contractor that's doing the paving work, a different contractor that's doing the concrete or the asphalt or the curbs versus the roads and the restoration. So our main communication is always through that prime contractor, and then we expect fully that they are turning around and getting that message to the subcontractors if it's not their own crews.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. Is this the same contractor that did the work in the Aberdeen area?
It is not.
It is not, okay. Thank you.
Councilman Brightwell?
Lee, I mentioned this before, and I'm not sure I mentioned it in open forum, but obviously the Tanglewood redevelopment and improvement, I got so many compliments from the neighbors and individuals that live there with respect to the gender makeup of the employees, the ethnicity of the employees, and I probably had mentioned this to you before, but I just want to make sure that whoever your general major contractor was, that they be recognized for the broad base of their employees. Because I live in that area, my neighbors indicated they were pleased to see, gender people who you normally don't see operating bulldozers, people, deal with dump trucks. It was just a pleasure to see and a pleasure to hear that the community was pleased with the makeup of the workforce.
Yeah, that's nice to hear that you were seeing that diversity. I'm not out there every day like the residents who are living out there seeing all the contractors, so I'll be sure to pass that message along to the contractor as well as our engineering consultants.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Right. On the map that we have for the project area, there are 4 streets that are not having work done. Has work been done on those previously?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Do you also know the current construction that's being done at the old McKinley School? Will the new sewer lines and water lines that are being put in be built to handle those additional homes and residences that are being built?
Yeah, the capacity is not really a concern there. It's mostly going to be a construction coordination, just to make sure that we're not tripping on each other when they start getting to their heavier construction. So their plans are in for permitting currently, so once they get closer to construction, I'll be helping to coordinate with the private development work and then the city's project.
Okay. And then also, do you know how many homes are being affected by this construction, or how many homes are in this construction area?
Not yet. We haven't done our mailer yet. So once I've got a mailer going out, then I've got to get those reproductions of our flyers and everything reproduced. So I'm not sure. I would guess we're probably in the neighborhood of 400-ish by looking at the map.
Because I'm just thinking that, we always talk about how much money we're spending on construction. It may be nice to say, this construction, each home is getting approximately $50,000 or $100,000 worth of improvement in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
A different way to emphasize the improvement. Because you hear
the level
$16
of
million
investment is
not a
huge.
big deal, or it's a big deal,
Yeah.
but when you break it down per home, it may have a bigger impact for the homeowner who's experiencing the short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Yeah, that's an interesting metric. That would not be difficult for us to put those metrics into our council items in the future, if you'd like.
Okay. I think that'd be good. Council, any other questions? All right, Councilwoman Hoag?
I don't have any questions, but I would like to offer a motion.
Go for it.
I move that we award the Washington Heights Water Main and Road Replacement Project to Palmar Enterprises of New Haven, Michigan for their acceptable low bid of $13,168,287.05. Funding coming from the local street land improvements account, 40%, and the other from the water and sewer bond fund account, 60%. And that the mayor and city clerk are authorized to execute the appropriate construction contract documents on behalf of the city with approval from our city attorney.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilwoman Hoag, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to approve the receipt of bids for Washington Heights Water Main and Road Replacement Project, job number 2273 SFLD to Palmar Enterprises of New Haven, Michigan. Any other questions from council? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a proposed sale of real property on West Haven Drive.
Good evening, council. Southfield owns 4 40-foot wide parcels on the north side of the road there in West Haven. They are 2 sets of 2 adjacent parcels. They've been vacant for 10 years, and we have them listed currently for $4,000 a parcel. Habitat for Humanity would like to purchase them, combine each 2 adjacent parcels into 2 80-foot wide parcels, and build 2 duplexes similar to the one they've already built on West Haven, which is included as an example. Administration is requesting that council approve the sale.
Council, any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Councilman Banks?
So this will be $16,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I move the approval of the proposed sale of real property for West Haven Drive as presented.
Support it.
It has been moved by Councilwoman Taylor, supported by Councilman Cruz, to approve the proposed sale of real property on West Haven Drive as presented. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Next, we're up to the council portion of the meeting, and we'll start with Councilman Frazier. Do you have anything you'd like to share? I'm sorry?
Nothing.
All right, Councilman Banks?
Thank you. To the listening audience, I would just like to remind everyone that the charter amendment proposal, fact sheet information is on the internet, and I would highly suggest that you take the time to read the fact sheet before voting on these two proposals. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Cruz?
No, I don't think I have anything today.
All right, Councilwoman Taylor?
No, I don't have anything new to add. I just would like to agree and ask our residents to review all of the information. And since we have the information regarding the proposals on the website, please take a few moments to read that. And if you have any questions, please reach out to any one of us here on council. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Brightwell?
Yeah, I would like to echo my colleagues' comments about the charter changes, and to feel free to reach out to council for comments and or explanation. But I do want to also mention a very positive thing that happened this weekend. The Boards and Commissions Committee of Council, we had an informational gathering at Hope United Church. This is a new procedure of reaching out to the community so that we can get more volunteers to apply for our boards and commissions. And I reached out to an auxiliary there. I have a friend who's the head of that auxiliary, and they spoke to the pastor, and the pastor green-lighted Southfield coming there and giving them an informational seminar, an informational gathering after the service, after the morning service. And we had about 30 individuals. Councilwoman Coretta Ho was there, Mr. Cruz was there, and we provided an overhead. It was a presentation of our boards and commission process. You know, they were very enthusiastic. The conversation, the Q&A, we were there for over an hour and 45 minutes. I got, and this was the pilot process to see how it works. And I want to thank our Community Relations Department for scrambling and pulling together the graphics for us, and I want to thank the clerk's office for pulling together a lot of things for us. They did it in a very quick manner. But from that session, we had about 2 or 3 of them currently that's in the work. They're going through their process of allowing us to come in and make a presentation. But from that presentation, there were 2 other individuals from another churches, and they said they would be talking to their pastor to get us to come out. So it's it's a win-win, and I was just amazed at the enthusiasm exhibited by the worshipers at Hope United, and I'm assuming, and quite naturally, it will be that enthusiasm will be exhibited around at other houses of worship. And this will be going out to all the houses of worship, well, selectively, because we can only do so many over a period of time. And obviously it'll be Sundays and or days of worship. But I just want to thank the city staff for supporting us, and I want to thank my committee members who were really supportive. And so, thank you.
Councilwoman Hoag?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of items. I'd like to wish the students a safe and successful upcoming school year. And I'd like to just recognize today is the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights March on Washington, where, as we know, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous speech, "I have a dream," for which I was named after his wife. But with that, I think I wanted to say that because in regards to the charter amendments that are coming on the ballot, I want folks to not confuse the goal of being responsible and accountable to not be nefarious. Don't fall into that rhetoric. Do your research, especially on appointed positions throughout the state of Michigan, because it's not a time to divide us, but to come together so that we keep Southfield moving forward. And then lastly, I just want to wish everyone a happy Labor Day, because I think that is Monday. That's all. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'd like to ask our fire chief if he can come to the podium for a minute. Impromptu celebration.
Yes.
For those who have do not know, For those who are not aware, our own fire chief, Johnny Menifee, was selected as the International Association of Fire Chiefs Great Lakes Division 2023 Chief of the Year.
Yes.
Do you want to give a little speech? Tell us what it's about.
Well, no, I was completely surprised. I went to a seminar in Kansas City this past week and received the honor. So it's the Great Lakes make up 6 states around the Great Lakes, and you're nominated by your peers. There's a board. There's a whole vetting process. So I had no idea. They totally kept it from me. I didn't know I had friends that could keep a secret that long. I rode on the plane with them and the whole 9. But it's quite an honor to be nominated, but actually to win. So I'm very thankful. That what I'm doing is making a difference and hopefully working of trying to do things. Just about serving, elevating, and educating. So I thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
So, Chief Menifee, does this mean you're one of the best police chiefs in the whole wide world?
I don't think I'm a good police chief.
I mean, fire chief.
I think I'm going to give that to Barron. I'm going to let Chief Barron have that.
Okay. I was so excited for you. I forgot what department you're in, but one of the best fire chiefs in the whole wide world.
I can't say that. No. I mean, I'm honored to be recognized. And I mean, that room was a pretty tough room to win an award like this in with all my peers there. But I appreciate them, looking at what I'm trying to do in the department and across the state and across the country, of us working with our legislators in Lansing as well as in D.C. We're all working together trying to make a difference and make the fire service better. So I'm really appreciative just to be nominated for the award.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you tell them to watch out because the Lions are going to be out there next week?
Oh yeah, the Lions. Yeah, we're having that year. This is our year.
Okay.
So yeah, good.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I also want to remind everyone, as Councilman Hoag mentioned, school is starting. Please remember not to drive around school buses. Make sure you stop. There is a school bus. There are several school bus stops in front of my home, and I wish I could give out tickets for the amount of people that are just driving right by the school bus with its lights flashing as kids are trying to get on. It's just astonishing. So please remind those who may not remember to please be careful around school buses, especially when those red lights are flashing. Another bit of good news for the city, that the city was selected as a finalist in 2 categories in the National 3 CMA Savvy Awards competition. One was for the city's annual Photo Prize Award that we have, and the other one is for our city's branding guidelines. So those awards will be given out in September. Hopefully we will win those awards as well, but I thought a good shout out to the Total Living Commission and our Community Relations Department who head up those two areas. And then last but certainly not least, there is as a follow-up to the gun violence community forum that we had here in Southfield, Farmington Hills is taking a turn and hosting a suicide prevention community forum September 14th in Farmington Hills at the Hawk Center, and that will again be from 5:30 to 8:30. We will have our Southfield Police Chief Barron, as well as the Farmington Hills Chief, and the panel of 5 that were at the gun violence doing suicide prevention. Again, looking for community input on how to solve this crisis. Again, that's Thursday, September 14th from 5:30 to 8:30 at the Hawk Community Center located off of 12 Mile Road. With that, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Just 2 things to put on your calendar. First of all, we have the annual Community Pride celebration. It'll be in room 115 on the 13th of September. And then on the 21st, we have the annual photo prize, which I believe will be held in council chambers that day. We're also planning an International Day of Peace program, probably around 5 o'clock on the 21st. I will be bringing to council a resolution on the 18th. We're planning to hold this out front at the Peace Poles. And the only other thing I want to mention, and I appreciate the comments by several council people. This is false rhetoric. The charter amendments are not about voter suppression. That's a highly loaded word. That is not the case. And yet that's what some people are trying to resort to confuse the residents. Again, as Ms. Hoag said, this is about accountability. That's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. City Administrator?
Thank you. I want to congratulate Chief Menefee. The toughest part about that, I want to thank Michael Mannion, Community Relations, for putting the application together, other chiefs in the area. The toughest part about that was keeping that a secret around here for a month. Only a handful of us know, so congratulations to Chief Menefee, well deserved. If you haven't been by, Miller Park is opened up. Looks great. Just a few finishing touches. We're going to add a couple benches over there, but we will be planning a ribbon cutting event for Miller Park, the tennis courts here, the pavilion, the place structure. We've actually completed a number of projects. Work at Carpenter Lake is proceeding. Few challenges as with any project that size. And I just want to at last wish everyone a happy Labor Day and be safe. And as has been echoed, the kids are heading back to school, and that morning traffic, let's also be a little bit more focused. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Attorney?
Good evening, everyone. I have nothing further to add, and I would like to also wish you all a happy Labor Day holiday.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Just a quick thank you to DPW and their staff, particularly Julian, KT, and Patrick, just for their help in the community. Appreciate them.
Thank you. Mr. Treasurer?
I would just like to remind the public about our tax deadline coming up for summer taxes. Please make sure to get the tax payments in by August 31st, either online, or we have a 24-hour Dropbox, or our office hours are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. And we have extensions available, deferments, basically, for people that are either veterans or senior citizens that have a household income below $40,000. And please make sure to apply with the Treasurer's Department prior. The official deadline for that is September 14th, but we want to make sure that everyone gets it in on time. So please, the sooner you get that done, the better it is. And that will extend people without any interest to make payments through the end of our tax collection time period, which is in February. And then hopefully we'll work with Oakland County. In the past, they've extended it even to April. So to help people when they get their federal tax returns, state tax returns, they're able to utilize those funds to pay their property taxes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We've heard from the city planner, city assessor is not here, city engineer we've heard from. Would our building official like to say anything? Okay. We have nothing to schedule. We have a closed session.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Move we go into closed session.
Support.
It has been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilman Frazier, that we go into a closed session.
I just need to amend that real quick.
I was going to
For
read the whole thing.
Oh, you're going to read the whole thing? Okay.
I know Don was going to be all over us. To go to a closed session to review labor relations strategy pursuant to Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act. Any questions? All those in, roll call vote.
Councilmember Cruz.
Yes.
Councilmember Frazier.
Yes.
Councilmember Holt.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandelbaum.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes.
Councilmember Banks.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we will go into the closed session next door.